For a small entry, they must make themselves smaller. They'll reconfigure their equipment for side mount. It's unconventional, and their air supply will be more limited.
Most divers wear a wetsuit. We wear a dry suit because the water is cold. It allows us to wear insulation underneath to keep us warm. It has these latex seals on the wrists and on the neck to keep the water out. This is my dive computer. It calculates my decompression for me. It has the ability to put different gas mixes in for your bottom mix, and also different decompression gases to accelerate the decompression. This is the battery pack for our primary light, and these hooks here are what we attach our tanks to. We have a lead plate in the back that gives us our negative buoyancy to counteract the weight of the insulation, or the lift of the insulation that we're wearing. We also have an air cell on there that can be inflated to give us lift. This is my primary light. It is a 35 watt with about a 10-degree beam. As you can see, this gives us a lot thinner profile that allows us to get into tighter places.
The team tries again.
When you switch over to a side mount system, you have two separate tanks, you have two separate regulators, and each one is feeding, is completely independent of the other. And if you have a failure on one, you have a backup that way. But it also, you have to manage your gas more efficiently. You can't just breathe off of one tank only and then breathe it down and then get on the other one, because if it fails you, then you have nothing. So you have to breathe a certain amount off this one and a certain amount off that one. I got down to the crack and eased in, and of course it was kind of tight, and that always brings on a little apprehension whenever you start trying to squeeze through something.
I could see Mike sending into the entrance, and I thought I would go head first to see if it would be any easier.
We decided that I would stay on the outside of the entrance just in case anything went wrong, in case of emergency.
But it opened up pretty soon, pretty quickly into a fairly large little room that we now call the staging room. I started looking around, and Swam down the corridor of that room and realized it was starting to get tight.
And we started looking around for where the flow was coming from. And at the bottom of the room, about 50 feet, there was a small crack covered with rock.
And my first thoughts was it was so disappointing that we only went into the cave, 10 or 12 feet, and here's this pile of rubble that is plugging up the pathway. And then I moved a few of the rocks, and they moved real easily, that there actually was caves down below it. And so then I got excited again that maybe we could go on through, But at that point, that was the end of that dive. It was time to come out.
People have known about the spring and have used it for a long time.
Well, as for prehistory, obviously none of us were there at those times, so we can't know a lot. But from what I know from oral history and what I know from what people have found here at Blue Spring and underneath the bluff shelter, this is probably one of the oldest inhabited places on this continent, arguably. There are items that have been found here that date back 10,000 years. And so because we haven't found pottery or points or those kinds of tools or implements that are older than that, doesn't mean that human beings weren't here. As I've heard from various people who've talked about the history of Blue Spring that's been passed on to them from their grandfathers and the grandfathers before them, it seems that American Indian people have been here since time immemorial, since we've been here, which is an awful long time. So it's an ancient place for American Indian indigenous people.
I make my spiritual connection here. I see this as a magic place, a spiritual place, a powerful place. You can feel it, and you can feel it when you meditate here because, visions are strong here. Your prayers are strong here. You feel spiritually strong here. These are the kinds of places that we hold sacred. I think all of the bands of the Cherokee recognize the Blue Spring because this was a place that nourished us on the Trail of Tears, and I know a lot of Cherokees come back here to visit for that reason, to pray here and to pray for their ancestors, to thank the spring for its gift to our people and its continuing gift for all people.
In the cave, the divers are finding artifacts of a much more recent history.
It looked like in the last 100 years, the spring seemed to be an easy place to get rid of things.
While exploring the staging room, I came across a large railroad tool. It looked like it was aluminum or stainless because it had been polished by the flow of the water in the rocks.
They find a freight wagon hub. Various tools from the 20th century. A large ratchet gear from one of the grist mills. And a strange circular object. As the exploration continues, they'll discover that previous generations have put obstacles in their path.